Hey Emma,
Yes, Madelyn.
what do you call the Prohibition-era bootlegger carrying moonshine across the river to his customers?
I don't know. What do you call it?
The Spiritfarer. Hello, and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
That one I was actually really proud of.
I got it. I understood it. It was good.
It was good. Did you hear that? Did she edit it out? First she said, I got it, I understood it. And then at the end, it was good. That's the review I was looking for.
You gotta, grade it on a scale, right?
That's fine.
In comparison to your normal ones.
I'll take it on a curve. That's fine. It's good means that there was a humorous element to it.
There was indeed a humorous element. I will give you that.
Well, listeners, thanks for tuning in. I'm the humorous element, Madelyn.
I'm the A. I don't know.
Oh, you're the grade.
Yeah.
You're the A?
Yeah.
That's in what element is A? Is there even an A element? I don't think there is.
No, never. I'm Emma.
With an A.
With an A at the end.
And thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. This week, we're going to be talking about old game Mafia and new game Spiritfarer. Did you catch the little riff on Mafia in my opening joke?
Are you asking me?
Well, yes, but also the listeners, rhetorically.
Yes.
Thanks. She understood it, ladies, gentlemen, and themblemen.
I don't think that's the official. I don't know what it is, but I don't think it's them but thems.
It didn't come out right. Friends and enemies. She got it. Alright. Well, let's join the Mafia, shall we?
Yeah, let's go. See you later, listeners.
Right.
We're gonna strike it rich.
We're joining up. Well, Mafia is a 2002 action-adventure game from Illusion Softworks, later 2K Czech, later merged into another studio, that was made for Windows, and then in 2004 it was ported to PS2 and Xbox.
Yes, indeed.
It's a trilogy. Mafia 2 came out in 2010, Mafia 3 in 2016, and just this past September, big remake of the first game, which is really the one we're talking about, Mafia Definitive Edition, came out, plus remasters of 2 and 3, so that came out in September. It's on sale right now, a little, at least.
So if you like driving, you could, I mean, just driving. Not doing crazy car stunts or anything.
If you like mostly obeying the laws of traffic,
yeah, in a virtual car, then you should pick it up.
Mafia. Yeah. So also, I guess the more obvious thing is if you like Scorsese films,
yes,
you should pick it up. Also, if you like driving, but perhaps the more obvious media comparison is if you enjoyed The Godfather and or The Sopranos and or Boardwalk Empire.
If you specifically like the scenes in those where they're driving.
Then boy, do we have something for you.
Having not seen any of these movies, I'm just assuming there are some driving scenes in them. But if you like those, you'll like Mafia a lot. It will be your perfect game.
Anyway, in Mafia, you play as former taxi driver, now mobster, Tommy Angelo, a sort of reverse Kiryu, if you will.
Sure, yeah.
Kiryu
keeps getting kicked out of the Yakuza. Right?
But he becomes a taxi driver, I think, in one of them.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't gotten there yet, but I do think he drives taxis. Anyway, You play as Tommy Angelo in the city of Lost Heaven, aka sort of a fake Chicago.
Yes.
In the 1920s and 1930s. And you're a down-on-your-luck immigrant, and you get roped into helping some mob members with a escape or something, and then suddenly you're a member of the mob, climbing the ranks. Consigliere, Cosa Nostra.
Yes, you get to start out by playing his days as a taxi driver, which is sort of boldly, I think, but also purposefully, extremely boring.
It's a bold move for a 2002 Grand Theft Auto ripoff, isn't it?
But that's the thing is actually though that it's very much the opposite of everything that Grand Theft Auto is. Like it came out I think the year after Grand Theft Auto 3, and like where Grand Theft Auto is all about like sort of mechanical freedom, right? Like running around the place, crashing cars, causing chaos, doing side quests, that sort of stuff. Mafia, for all its sort of like crime aesthetics and similarity, is very linear. And there is no side content except for a couple of missions where you can get cool cars.
And there's kind of a post game where you get to. It sounds like you get to do a little bit more of the Grand Theft Auto-y kind of stuff. Like you chase aliens in the post game.
Oh.
There's some wild post game stuff. But the game itself does feel like, yeah, and I can't remember exactly. I was reading a few kind of retrospectives on this. And somebody talked about how, oh yeah, it was The Guardian. They talked about how if the hardware of the day was capable of realizing enormous 3D spaces, why not treat a virtual city as a grand movie set rather than a sociopath's playpen?
Yeah.
And that's sort of what happens here. We have this very, almost too formulaic mob story. It's like really paying homage to all of these really classic films, but also just the genre and the tropes of the genre in general. There's bank robberies, there's assassinations, you're fighting for control of the city as a member of the Salieri family, you're fighting the Morello family, eventually you go to jail, right? Like, it's all that good stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty common problem of like older video games with like sort of I guess cinematic ambitions and stuff, is they end up being very heavily referential of movies, right? Because like that's how people knew how to tell stories, like a movie, right? So that ends up being sort of transferred into the video game as well.
And at the time, it got a lot of critical acclaim for it. I mean, in 2002, doing a pretty good, pastiche of a mafia movie in an open-world action-adventure game, like, that's pretty good, as gameplay stories go, for the time. So, yeah, it was got good reviews for being more realistic and more serious than Grand Theft Auto. Mm-hmm. Because, of course, you can't have a game that's about cars in a city without it being compared to Grand Theft Auto.
Yep.
Can I call it a Grand Theft Auto vania, just for fun?
Why is the vania in there? What work is the vania doing?
It's like a Metroidvania.
Yes, but you know Vania is from Castlevania, right? It's not just
I think we should forget about that association, and instead, just whenever we're referring to something as a Grand Theft Auto-like, or a, I don't know, whatever game you want to be like, it should be a Vania.
Okay.
Like kind of a country, like a Transylvania.
Yeah, I think that's where the Vania in Castlevania is from, in fact.
Well, yeah, I know that too, but I was thinking of these as like autonomous countries,
okay,
as opposed to genres, so they can like fight each other.
Okay.
So it's a Grand Theft Auto Vania, because there's cars and it's in a city and you can do some crime. It does sort of seem like everything I was reading was comparing even the system where, so like we said, you have to drive pretty good, right? Because you can get speeding tickets, you can get tickets for running red lights.
Yes.
And they like stack up into the cops will shoot at you eventually if you've run too many red lights.
Yes.
Which apparently is sort of a thing in GTA too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a
sort
of like a reputation or wanted system, I believe.
Yeah.
But I think it's less for speeding.
Fair enough. Even the police AI in this game are not, I mean, it's a 2002 game, so they're not perfect. They only care about you.
Yeah.
If they see other AI members speeding or breaking traffic rules or shooting at you, they do not do anything.
Yes.
Which, you know what? Relatable. Maybe that was on purpose.
I don't think so.
Anyway. Yeah, like, it got good reviews for being, like, your car gets beat up in a realistic way, and there's a lot of cars that you can drive, which really just hits home for me that this is, like, not a genre that I have ever played.
Yeah, it actually sounds kind of cool for the time, though, is that it is like a real-time collision system, basically, so where your car gets hit will be where the damage is shown, versus other games will use, like, pre-made damaged models for the cars, and they'll just swap in the damaged model, basically, regardless of where the car was actually hit. So, like, if you're really into cars, Mafia is kind of the game that you want to be looking at.
It has been hailed in some circles as the best Czech game ever made. Because the studio is from the Czech Republic.
That's an interesting superlative, I guess.
I know. What do you think? I was like, I don't know any games that were made there.
Where is CD Projekt Red from again?
More Scandinavian than that,
yeah,
I think.
I don't think it's Czech. But it's somewhere. It's somewhere over there. In the general European area.
Yeah. The European Union, you might even call it.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, this game even has the classic, like, Mafia movie voiceover. So that's how you know it's really trying to be a movie.
Yeah.
Here. That's maybe even more the case in the remake. Because now, and man, is this just going to be a thing that every game that's set in the past has now? But it has a noir mode where you can play in black and white.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, is just everybody going to do that?
Yeah. Filters are just becoming more popular. Like, Demon Souls has a whole bunch of filters that you can use, right? For sort of changing the lighting up. And they added a whole bunch of very weird filters to The Last of Us Part 2 a little bit after launch, and stuff. So people just like... I don't fully understand the point of it. Like, sure, photo mode, whatever. Do whatever you want. But, like, isn't the whole point that you made it... You made it look like this on purpose, right? So why would you want a player to be playing with a filter over it? But whatever.
Ghost of Tsushima Vania.
No.
No, for that game and for this one, I mean, it's a remake, this one, right? So they couldn't just be like, it's going to be in black and white now.
Yeah.
Right? But for that game and for this one, I sort of get it. It's gimmicky, right? It's definitely a gimmick. And probably you should just lean in if that's what you think the game should be. But for both of those, it's like, okay, like, you are sort of... And in fact, both of those really are heavily inspired by film traditions, right?
Sure.
I mean, okay, I know. Like, samurai aren't just a film. I understand that. But...
Oh, I mean, no, yes. They are definitely inspired by cinematic samurai, not real samurai.
Well, yes. So in both of those, it's like, okay, like, you really are doing a movie homage here, so, like, I sort of get it. But also, it does just read to me as, like, this is a gimmick.
Yeah. Yeah. It's for marketing, for sure.
Well, yeah. They've done some sort of interesting things with the sequels, though, of Mafia. Spoiler-ish, I guess. Well, I'll try not to spoil. But you play as someone different in Mafia 2. And then again, someone different in Mafia 3. So Mafia 2 goes almost, like, even more stereotypical. Because you're, like, playing as, like, a Sicilian immigrant gangster. Which is just like, yeah, it's like they're like, what boxes did we not tick?
Sicily.
From these movies. Sicily, perfect. But then in Mafia 3, also Mafia 2 is like kind of notorious. It held the world record as the most profane game for a while. Because it has like 350 F-bombs.
Wow.
And also there were some like anti-mafia organizations in the EU that wanted it to be banned.
I bet it's not the most profane game anymore.
This was in 2010. I was gonna say, like, surely with just like the ballooning size of games, it cannot be the most profane. Like, just games are too long.
Yeah.
Like, there has to be a long game where somebody says the F word. But it would be interesting.
Times.
It'd be interesting, like, the per capita, like, the per gameplay minutes. Profanity should really be how they measure it. Guinness,
True.
Call me.
That's a good study.
Anyway. But Mafia 3, I feel like, takes the series in an interesting and bold direction. In that it takes place in New Bordeaux, which is sort of a New Orleans take, in the 60s, and instead is kind of more inspired by like blaxploitation cinema, and has a lead who is a black Vietnam vet who kind of runs this black mob who spars with all of these other kind of like the Italian mob, but also like white supremacists. Not that the game was necessarily 100% successful in being a great game.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the gameplay of this does feel like a bit of a relic of the aughts. But it was interesting for me to be reading about that is a bold direction to take your ongoing series about the mafia into. And like, kudos for, you know, giving your game a protagonist of color, even if it was not, I mean, I didn't read too much about kind of like how successful were they in this, but it did get a lot of praise for the acting.
It's a little fraught for like a Czech company to be like taking inspiration from blaxploitation films, but
I hear you. I'm just saying, like, who else is doing that?
That's true.
Probably a lot of indie developers who I haven't heard of.
That's
because they aren't being funded by people. But even, like, putting aside, like, it would be better for people who share this culture and understand this better to be doing this. It's like, well, at least they're trying, and when I Googled it, the first thing that came up wasn't, like, let me talk to you about how racist this game was.
Yeah, that's good.
It's probably still there, but, like, kudos that, like, I would at least have to get to page 2 on Google to find those takes. Because that means that at least it wasn't just, like, overtly horrible. But, like, shame on the game industry that this has to be the level, like, this is the bar. The bar is like, oh, your protagonist is black.
Yeah.
Like,
that
good.
Is basically
you
the
did
bar.
A good job.
Not that anybody, finished Mafia. Because Mafia ends with the car race sequence. That's the end of it. Nobody gets past that point in the original. What? Did you read about this?
No.
Okay, so in the original Mafia, there's a few hours in, there's like a car racing segment where you're like in like antique sort of racing cars, and everybody's like, you do it, even though your guy is like, I've never, like, I drive a taxi, not a race car. And it's 5 laps, and you have to win it. And if you don't win it, you can't progress past that point. So you just have to keep doing it again and again. And apparently, when they were testing it, and this is a very stupid thing that they did, okay? And I'm not uncomfortable calling it very stupid. Everybody testing it used, like, a steering wheel controller to test it.
Oh, no.
So, and that's not something that a lot of people just had lying around to plug in to their computer in 2002. Or now.
Or ever.
Or ever. So when actually using, like, the other controls, like, the race cars are sort of responsive in a similar way to those cars would be responsive, which means they're not very. And so a lot of players got very stuck on this. And in fact, they added patches later that either, I think they gave you an option to skip it entirely or just like bring the difficulty down to like negligible levels because it was just a roadblock for like a grand majority of players at the beginning.
Literally.
Yeah. Oh, so funny.
In reading about Definitive Edition, it does sound like they toned down that kind of you're driving cars from the 1930s control aesthetic.
Yeah.
Kind of across the board. Which I was reading about and I was like, that's kind of dumb. Like, isn't some of the charm of it that these cars are horrible to drive? But then I thought about myself playing and I'd be like, no, I don't want that.
I mean, that's the argument with all remakes, right? That I think both sides have valid points, right? Of like, when it comes to like Shadow of the Colossus and Demon's Souls too, is that maybe some of the charm of the game is in the sort of clunkiness of it. But of course, for a modern remake, you have to shave all that down to a polish.
Well, this is doubly kind of tricky because isn't some of the... It's not even like the clunkiness of it was necessarily all just limitations at the time. Like, presumably, some of it was clunky on purpose to kind of evoke what it would have been like to drive a car in the 1930s.
Yeah.
So that's even like a trickier balancing act, I feel like.
Yeah, that's true.
When the game is sort of clunky on purpose, not just clunky because it's 18 years old.
Yeah.
I did read a sort of scathing think piece from Wired on the Definitive Edition, in that they basically were like, why would you remake this?
Yeah.
Like, it's already a sort of warmed over video game remake of all of these mafia tropes, and those tropes have only gotten staler in the 18 years since, or only gotten like more baked into culture maybe in the 18 years since the story, and the story doesn't really have any kind of a, like, they were like, the ending of it is that he learns that crime doesn't pay.
Yeah.
It's like, you're right, like the story doesn't really have any kind of a unique take on that kind of stereotype, all those tropes. So it's interesting. Like, Mafia is sold well, but it's not like a all-time classic game.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting, right? Like, the question of why do you remake something, right? That I think a lot of remakes, like this year, have sort of gotten into to different degrees, of course. I mean, of course, it's always important that games remain accessible, and in our modern landscape, just remakes and remasters are the way that the industry is choosing to do that. For a limited time.
Oof.
Says Nintendo. So in that way, like, I understand, like, the importance of it, right? Like, it was a relatively significant game when it came out, so I get that. But then again, like, why did you remake the first one, but the other two could just be remasters? Why couldn't... Like, from what I read about it, like, the facial animation, at least, was pretty good for 2002, and remained pretty good for a few years after that, even if the bodies apparently were a little freaky.
I mean, I just assumed that they remade the first one because it was so old.
I guess
maybe
so.
This is coming from me having played.
I mean, Kingdom Hearts came out in 2002. That hasn't been remade; it's just been remastered.
No, that's not true because they had to remake it.
I know, but you understand what I mean.
I do understand what you mean. I guess my point being, if they hadn't remastered, remastered, you can read all about Square Enix's bad source code stuff, or you can listen to it in our episode that was about gaming history. But if they had waited until now, they probably would have remade it.
Would they have, though? I don't know. I mean, maybe it's not fair.
Absolutely would. He'd be like, yes, my opportunity to layer in some stuff that ties in with my games.
I mean, he already did that. They did the final mix the year afterwards. But, like, maybe it's not quite a fair comparison because Kingdom Hearts is very, like when the early games goes between, like, the 2D faces and then the, like, extremely detailed animations, right? Like, that was their compromise versus a lot of games that just had, like, okay animation all the way through. Yeah. Right? So maybe it's not a super fair comparison to say that. But that's the question, right? Like, why? What is the point of remaking it? I think there have been games from the early 2000s that have just been remasters, and that's been fine.
Well, I had just assumed that it was a similar situation to, like, the Yakuza games, in that the PS2 ones were, like, not real. Like, it would not be worthwhile to just remaster those, because they just wouldn't look good, or they wouldn't run in a way that anyone would want to play them now. As opposed to, like, with 3, 4, and 5, they just remastered them. And yeah, they're a little bit like PS3, but I haven't found them, like, so clunky.
I mean, a lot of the reviews, like, maybe that was the purpose, but a lot of the reviews of Definitive Edition have said, like, it doesn't feel like it's updated that much, you know, from the original, in terms of, like, modern day cutting edge animation technology and stuff, right? Like, they're saying, like, the cutscenes look really good, and then you go into the in-game, and that does not look great in comparison. Or even, like, that much better was some of the reviews were saying.
Well, it's also just weird to me of, like, why didn't you just make Mafia 4? Right?
Are they not? I was sort of, maybe I'm mixing it up with something else, but I was sort of under the impression that they're doing this because Mafia 4 was going to be announced.
Well, first, like, Mafia 4 seemed like it was rumored, but then they announced this. I don't know, I haven't quite been able to put together if I should be I mean, it feels like with this release, I should be expecting a Mafia 4.
All the Mafia 4 links look fake, so maybe that I'm just mixing it up with... Maybe I'm mixing it up with Saints Row? There was some game we did somewhat recently that was, like, crimey, that had some, like, were re-releasing stuff because they had a new one coming out, but I don't remember which one it was.
I mean, it would feel silly to me that they went to all this effort to, you know, remake the whole series. Remake the first one and remaster the rest, if they weren't planning a fourth one, right? But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. None of these games are, like, all-time greats. Just make the fourth one.
Were none of them on the Wikipedia list?
The Wikipedia page didn't link. Usually their individual pages link to the Wikipedia list. I admit I didn't go to the list to make sure that they weren't on it, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that they were on Wikipedia's greatest games of all time list.
Then why are we even talking about them, you know?
Genuinely, we really should have just done a podcast on every game. You should really go through that list and make sure we've talked about all of them.
Good call.
That's where the next games for the hat come from. Anyway, I do feel like we're going to see more of this in the coming years. More of these kind of remake, remaster packages of game. Like, it would be harsh to call Mafia a mediocre game. I mean, now it might feel that way. But of good games from the early 2000s.
Sure, yeah.
Which will be interesting. Team buddies. Somebody. Anybody. Please.
That's a little earlier, I think.
The original X-Men Legends.
Yeah, if only.
If somebody would remaster all of the X-Men Legends games for me, I would pay the $60 for 3 months only to have those.
Oh, man.
You know I would.
I know you would.
And you know what? Maybe that makes me understand this a little better. Because, man, X-Men Legends is a mediocre game, right? It's a great game. But, like, it's not. But I'm very attached to it. So, I'm sure plenty of people feel the same way about Mafia.
Sure.
Plenty of film majors.
But in Mafia, can you wander around the campus talking
and
to
answer
students
trivia questions?
And answer trivia questions.
I don't know. I haven't played it.
I didn't think so.
I could have gotten it. Mafia and Spiritfarer cost the same amount this weekend, but I opted in to the game that I thought would be a better fit for me.
Yeah, sounds good. Not into driving, I think. We're all about sailing here.
Yes, we're not into driving. That's why. Cars, no thanks.
At the bottom of her ranked list of Pixar movies. Cars 3, Cars 2, Cars, because there's more cars in each of them, so they must be lower on the totem pole.
Oh, yeah, Tommy from Mafia would love Cars. He'd be like, an animated movie about cars?
That's so me.
Sign me up. That's so me.
That's what they say in the mob. That's rad.
That's so me. Mafia, more like more for me.
What?
Get it like mar,
Oh,
for yeah. More like more for me.
Okay.
Let's move on, shall we?
Sure.
Let's stop before this devolves any further. That would have been a good one if it was a Devolver game, but it's not.
But it's not.
I need to put that in my brain the next time we talk about a game from
Got it.
Devolver Digital. Anyway, let's talk about Spiritfarer.
Yeah. Spiritfarer is a management simulator. Cozy management simulator. From Thunder Lotus Games. It's on all
Everything.
systems.
Plus Stadia.
I guess that counts as a system.
If you have Stadia,
You can
this
play
is
it
the
on
one
Stadia.
game.
And you take on the role of Stella, who is the Spiritfarer, the new Spiritfarer, taking over from Karen. Lots of Karens this year. Good.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I was like, this is a weird little
This
companion
one
piece.
speaks. I thought it was really funny when he goes, Stella.
Speaking of 50s tropes.
So as the Spiritfarer, you must gather up different spirits from different islands and help them sort of with their final requests through lots of sailing around on your boat and increasing the size of your boat so that you can build more stuff on your boat and gathering resources for stuff on your boat. Both me and Madelyn played this, and for me it really hit like that sweet spot of like constant low-key panic that I look for in my games. Like there's always so much to do to like get things done, you know? Like you have like your missions and you have to get like 3 things done before you can complete that request for them. So there's a lot of being sort of ferrying back and forth between places trying to get everything that you need.
Some of the reviews claimed that the slow gameplay was kind of a plus.
Yeah, I don't know what they're talking about.
It's like, I think I'm playing this game very wrong.
But I don't think I am, is the thing.
I'm just like constantly like, water my plants, make more popcorn.
Yeah, I
cut
always
some
have something going in the kitchen.
Fish, fish, fish. It was a game changer when I discovered things can't burn.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good.
I was nervous. I was like...
No, but yeah, like, I will be going about my business, like, speedily, and I've had, like, the passengers be like, did you forget about my request? And I'm like, no, I just have 4 things to do first. So it doesn't really feel like it's supposed to be slow, because they'll, like, remind you. Like, there's not consequences, I don't think, for taking too long. But they will remind you about their thing if you're taking too long.
Exactly.
I also now have 5 passengers on my boat, so...
So you're ahead of me. I only have 4.
Yeah. I just got the 5th before I stopped yesterday morning on And I was like, oh no, because already having 4 passengers and trying to make sure that they're fed and hugged and taken care of is a lot.
Do you have the union organizer?
Yes, I just got the union organizer. That was my 5th one.
He's my 4th one.
Have you gotten the sheep lady?
No.
She's not a sheep. I don't know what kind of animal she is, actually. I didn't really pay attention, but you get her through sheep.
Cool. That must be next to my list then. I don't know.
You must have a passenger that I don't have then. Oh no, you only have 4. That's what you said.
I only have 4.
Okay, got it.
We're having a grand time.
Yeah.
This game is just danger. This is a dangerous game for me.
Yeah.
Given my history.
At least, you know, unlike Animal Crossing or something, this does have, like, an ending at some point, so...
I know. I'm grateful for that, because I'm, like, thinking back, I'm like, okay, I went through, like, an intense Stardew Valley phase.
Yeah.
Where, at the time, I feel like I played through a lot, like, most of the content that Stardew Valley had to offer when I was playing it.
Yeah.
There was some of the dungeony stuff that I did never quite finish, but, like, at the time, I feel like, I got married, everybody in the town liked me a lot. Like, I played a lot of that game.
Yeah.
And then obviously, like, I mean, this is the most boring thing to say, but it's like, I had an intense Animal Crossing phase earlier this year.
Yeah.
Like, that's, like, the most boring thing that anyone can say to you right now. It's like, oh, really? You played a lot of Animal Crossing in April. That's interesting. Tell me more. That's not true. If you would like to talk about that, to be honest, I would be thrilled to talk about that. It's still a rush for anybody to play video games.
Uh-huh.
It's genuinely a rush to hear about anybody playing games. But yeah, given, like, the intensity with which I was into those games for several months at a time, I do worry about... It has made me feel like I really do need to write that blog post about checklist games.
Yeah.
Because this is just, like, yet another one on that list of, like...
Yeah, this is just
really
an endless checklist game.
It really makes me feel like I'm getting stuff done, and it gives me a break from my own endless checklist.
Yeah.
Here in perhaps my most stressful work week of the year, here on Thanksgiving, you know, it's I'm grateful to have a game that gives me an illusion of productivity so I can look away from my notebook, which has real productivity in it.
Yeah.
And I will be grateful for it until it becomes a detriment to my real productivity, which no doubt will be very soon.
Again, thankfully, this is a game that does eventually have an endpoint, so you will run out eventually, unlike Stardew Valley or Animal Crossing necessarily.
It's make me want to go back to Stardew Valley, though. That's the danger.
That is the danger.
It's like, I do feel like I'm going to finish this and be like, what next? And it'll be Stardew Valley, and that's dangerous.
But yeah, anyway, like I sort of said, a lot of this game is like you have a ship, and you gather passengers for your ship. And there's a bunch of facilities you can build on your ship, and within those facilities you can do different things. There's the kitchen, where you can cook stuff. There's a field and a garden where you can grow stuff. I'm trying to fit an orchard on my ship, but everybody's houses are such weird shapes that it's very hard to fit.
I have 2 gardens, which I did at one point early. No, not gardens. 2 fields, which I did at one point early in the game.
I don't even have enough seeds for my field and garden half the time.
Yeah, I've run out of seeds now, but, you know, I do have 2 of them.
Good for you.
Thanks. Proud of myself.
So yeah, you have a limited amount of space on your ship to put all of these buildings and facilities, and your guests eventually want their own houses, so you have to build their own houses and then possibly improve their houses as time goes along. You can sort of increase the space by going to the shipbuilder, who will build out your ship and give you the ability to build more facilities. So it really is like this progressive, like you get more and more tasks exponentially as your ship grows, basically.
And I don't know if you've gotten to this point with anyone yet, but theoretically, eventually, you have to say goodbye to your spirit friends and send them down to the great beyond for Zagreus to murder over and over again.
Yes, I believe that is how it works.
That's canon.
The greatest crossover in the history of video games.
Can you imagine?
They're both very charming indie games. I would be perfectly fine with them crossing
Your
over.
100th run of Hades, Charon is like, peace. And it's the new Charon.
It's just Hades, but you're just decorating the underworld to annoy your dad instead of trying to get out. Nobody needs those.
Dad, they do. My vegan spirit needs to eat it. Dad, nobody likes shellfish. Dad,
yes, you do also have to
pork?
take care of all your residents in Spiritfarer by feeding them, preferably
things
that they like, and also by giving them hugs, filling their bellies,
and once a day only,
and their hearts. Yes, not excessive hugs. I relate to that. Strict 1 hug a day policy, please. That might be even a little too much for me.
2/3 of a hug per day.
Yes. Just an arm around the shoulders per day.
Well, you also have a pet. I think Daffodil that twist at the end, here I'm calling it, is going to be that Daffodil is the real Spiritfarer, and you're actually a spirit that Daffodil is taken care of.
But you're both the Spiritfarer. That's how Karen introduces it at the start.
Nah, it's a trick.
Daffodil steals her own Everlight.
From Charon's entrails.
Yeah, she just goes inside
it's a little
him.
Weird.
It's a very cat-like thing to do, I guess.
Look, I appreciate they didn't try to get too with the intro. They just laid it out here's what it is. Here's what's going on later. I'm off to join the universe or whatever.
Yeah.
But that intro was a little abrupt for me.
Worst orientation ever, right?
Yeah, genuinely. It's oh, you'll figure it out.
By the way, the boat's gonna vanish.
Yeah. Good luck.
Find your own. See you later, kid.
See you never, kid.
I'm not sure if... But on that point, I'm not sure if Stella is, also dead. Right?
Oh, she's definitely dead.
Yeah, but is she, dead, or was she, chosen,
I think she's dead. And well, why is every member of her family dead?
It's just, her uncle... Gwen's just her friend, I think, so...
Sort of, but they're very close friends.
Sure.
Also, is Gwen from New York City? Gwen refers to her apartment on Waverly and then refers to moving upstate. So
maybe
if you're trying to tell me that she doesn't live, she's not from my neighborhood.
I mean, she might be.
But then she has an alpine lodge, which is
that's her parents, though, right?
Well, her house is supposed to look like an alpine thing.
Oh, her house. I thought I got confused with the villa that she...
Right, the big villa.
Yeah. I mean, do you want a New York City apartment on a ship, or do you want an alpine lodge on a ship?
It's more or less stacked up like their New York City apartments. So
they are.
What's the diff? She has a studio with a loft.
Little known fact, Madelyn scales 3 ladders up to her house each day.
I could take the fire escape. Restaurant patrons downstairs would be a little weirded out, but that's okay.
Maybe it'd scare off tap dancing guy.
Oh my god. You've ID'd me now, though. Everyone knows where I live.
I'm sorry.
Just dox me.
I'm sure there's at least 200 tap dancing guys in New York.
You're right.
Seems like that kind of city.
200 minimum. What's your favorite minigame?
What about the what?
What's your favorite minigame?
What do you mean by minigame?
Like, do you like chopping wood? Do you like weaving? Do you like cooking?
Oh, weaving's
fishing?
so easy. Chopping wood is so hard.
I can't get the wood chopping right.
I like, have you gotten the foundry yet?
No.
For ore smelting?
No.
I like that one.
I can't figure out where I'm supposed to find oak. So, no.
Just on an island.
There's no oak islands. Listeners, do you get the idea?
You're going in the wrong direction.
I was for a while. I tried to just, like, sail off the map, and they were like, it's too foggy. I was like, dang, okay. Yeah, did you know that if you cook sawdust, it turns into coal?
I did.
Did somebody teach you that?
No.
Oh. I thought that was cool that I had figured that out.
I just know, like, I did the wood thing, and then I noticed, like, I can stick sawdust in here. So I did it. It made me coal. Although I have about, like, endless amounts of coal now from mining it around town. So.
See, you're way further in this game than I am.
See, I think also, like, if you went to the Strike Island first, you might just, like, I went to the west.
They directed me to some island that I couldn't get to.
Because there's, like, an ice flow there or something?
Yeah, like Sparkle Road is in the way.
Yeah. But yeah, I went to the west of the map first, so you must have gotten to the east of the map first.
Well, I did go to the west of the map, and then I was like, okay, I can't get through Sparkle Road, so
well, I guess I went southwest.
Oh, okay.
As opposed to northwest.
Fair enough.
So it's sort of like an open world kind of thing, in that you sail from destination to destination. And as you get requests, sometimes things will get added to the map, but also as you sail, the map will sort of get filled in for where you can go next. Right. So you can sort of go, there's some freedom in what order you do things in, basically.
This game does make me once again wish that my neighbors in Animal Crossing had more of a linear personality and narrative.
Yeah. My neighbors just never talk to each other in Animal Crossing, which I think really, like, lessens the experience of it. I don't understand
so
why they
mine were
don't.
By the end of it. But even then, I just wish, like, thinking about that and also talking about Hades a little bit, it's like, it really feels like they could have, in that game, created a system with a little bit more, like, little mini narratives that existed.
Yeah.
And I realize that's not ever what Animal Crossing has been, really. But again, thinking about Hades, where it's like, well, they managed to figure out 100 runs worth of story and conversation with these people that sometimes feels disconnected from any, like, sometimes just feels like whatever, but often feels like it has some kind of progression. And it does feel like, and then looking at this game, which obviously is not, you know, it's much more contained and it's not the same thing as Animal Crossing, right? I recognize that. But it does, whenever I play one of these games that's even in that kind of world, make me think, like, oh man, like, I really wish I could connect more with my neighbors. That would really be the thing that would make me unable to put Animal Crossing down.
I giggled a little bit at thinking of Hades within the same world as Animal Crossing, but
I wasn't thinking of Hades.
Moving past that, I will say
no, that wasn't what I was trying to say.
I know, I get
thing.
it. It's okay. I will say for Hades, like, being in early access for 2 years probably really helped them with that. But
yeah, but Animal Crossing rolls out new content all the time, so just roll out new villager dialogue every time you roll out an update.
I mean, they sort of do, right? It's just event-based.
Okay, but that's not what I meant.
Yes, I know that's not what you meant.
Not every one of them being like, I want turkey. I didn't play. I'm sure that's not what they said.
That probably is maybe partially what they say. But no, I get your point. Like, when I was playing regularly, I just, like, really wanted the villagers on my island to have their own, like, interpersonal relationships outside of, like, sometimes visiting each other's houses, you know?
Yeah.
But they just don't, which is disappointing.
It's just like, it just wouldn't be that hard. You don't have to make it for individual villagers. You just have to make it for personality types. You already sort of have this. Just beef it up a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, again, why fix what isn't broke, I guess.
Even if they just wrote me letters talking about each other every once in a while. that would I'd be like, ha ha ha, let me take a picture of that and put it on Twitter. Like,
yeah, I mean, I really think the thing with Nintendo, various Nintendo franchises, and obviously this isn't true of all of Nintendo because there's Breath of the Wild, but I really think they have this attitude of like, well, if this system's working and tons of people will buy it, what's necessarily the point of really improving things or changing things up, you know? And, like, you know, stuff like New Horizons and Sword and Shield are still really fun games to go through in their own way. So in some ways there is some merit to that attitude.
I would put Sword and Shield in a different category, though, because they did do a lot of new stuff with that relative to
Sure.
Pokemon, anyway. Not to say, like, man, it's not the dark Pokemon game that we all want it to be.
I don't want it to be a dark Pokemon game, thank you.
You don't want to dive into Team Rocket, like, trafficking Pokemon?
No. I would take a Jesse and James game. Why not?
Let's go Jesse and let's go James.
Yeah.
I'm hitting on ideas for free over here. Anyway, I'm really enjoying Spiritfarer. I'm going to enjoy it until I play it into the ground, probably.
Yes.
Which is just what I do with these kinds of games.
Same here.
So hopefully, you know, I'll report back on it. I do feel like I have a little bit of an artificial timeline on a lot of the games that I'm playing right now as I, like, endeavor to go home for the holidays. Of, like, can I finish all the games that I'm playing on the PS4 before then and just bring my Switch?
But see, if you're already driving...
But then I have to unplug it. But you're right.
I have to unplug it.
You're the one who's like, you know, I try to play games on the same thing, so I don't have to switch back and forth. I try to have one game on each system, so I don't have to...
Well, I'm very much not doing that right now. So I haven't touched my Switch in a couple of weeks.
Fair enough. Anyway, I would definitely recommend picking up Spiritfarer. I have to admit that because it was an indie game, I was shocked to have to buy it at full price.
To be clear, full price is $30, not
right,
$60.
Which is fine. I'm happy to pay that for the game, but I did sort of register to myself, like, why do you think that if it's an indie game, it has to be on sale?
Yeah, I think it's just too new to want to be doing the holiday sales, which I understand.
I get it.
Yeah.
It got a lot of good press, which, you know, for a game from a company of this size.
Yeah.
Right, I know Thunder Lotus has some other kind of, like, relatively well-received little games, right? I'm not super familiar with their work. Know. They're from Canada.
They are.
But to get the kind of press this game got, I guess it's probably already selling as well as they needed it to sell, and probably then some. But yeah, I really did think it was gonna be a Black Friday sale, and it wasn't. But yeah, it's only $30, and you know what? I spent $60 on a Kingdom Hearts rhythm game, so can't really complain, can I? So you ready to mash these up? I hadn't even thought about it until this moment that I have to mash these games up.
I'm ready to mash these games up efficiently.
It's a cozy mafia management simulator.
Yeah. No, really. Like, you're sort of like the captain of the mafia. You've got, like, your portion of the city, right? And you have to sort of manage your various businesses, and your boys, yeah. And, like, your boys are represented by, like, you know, like the leaders of different sort of groups or businesses, right? And you have to give them food and hugs. Or whatever the equivalent is.
Cannolis and...
firm shoulder pats.
Yeah, horse heads.
Sure.
That's from The Godfather, right?
I don't know. Isn't that a threat? That's not like a...
Yeah, it is.
You're not threatening your boys.
And eventually, sometimes your boys have to leave the family to, like, make something of themselves, you know, to get out of the business.
Or they're just murdered, I guess.
Or they're murdered. It's about death in a different way.
Yeah. The suddenness of death, maybe. You know?
People would refer to this, though, like a wholesome, like, mob game. This would be a Yakuza vania.
Stop using vania. I hate it so much.
Oh, but there's no cars.
Just whenever you go to a different part of your city, there's a weird driving segment where you have to plug in the external.
What if it's a cozy car management simulator instead?
So, like, you're a mechanic?
You're an antique car collector.
I was thinking you'd be like a mechanic and you have like your regular customers that you have to make happy.
But see, I was thinking it would be more fun if the cars were personified, like in the way people talk about their cars.
I see. Interesting. I like that too.
That's a little bit disturbing.
It's a little disturbing, especially in like a like gritty mob setting sort of thing.
I was trying to remove it from the gritty mob setting. Well, it's like you could be like a grizzled, like you could be like a grump with a heart of gold kind of dude, you know,
who just speaks to his cars.
Yeah, he's lonely.
Cars, the game, the Pixar movie.
That is kind of what I was thinking of, like Lightning McQueen does cameo.
Yes. Yeah.
He is a DLC pack.
It's got potential. It's got potential, kid. No, I think both those are perfectly fine ideas. You know?
Thanks. Rave review.
Yeah.
The beginning of the episode, I was told my joke was good. Now I've been told my ideas are perfectly fine. So I'm headed out on a high note this week, everybody.
Riding the clouds.
My most successful, talk this contribution to date. Well, folks, do you need some cozy management in your life? Are you craving some mafia-style assassinations? Do you wish that you got to guide spirits to the afterlife? Emma and I have not really gotten to, the emotionally affecting part of the game yet,
no.
seemingly.
Gwen has locked herself in her room.
Yeah, so... same. Oh, I'm glad she's locked away for you, too.
Yeah, so maybe that's coming soon, but not yet.
Anyway, well, you should check out our social media. That doesn't really link to what I said, but if you've thoughts about any of the things that I said, you should check out our social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Talk This Podcast. So check us out there. It'll keep you updated also on the latest happenings on our website. You can find us at www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can read all about the show, see the games that are in the hat that Emma's about to pull from, and that we really ought to put the whole Wikipedia greatest games of all time list on.
Really should.
And you should check out the blog while you're there, featuring long-running series Clickbait Boyfriend, with an edition on Melody of Memory Part 1 coming soon, and also Split Screen, where Emma and I are watching Coffee Prince and My Hero Academia, plus various other blog content coming, anytime we feel like posting it. Finally, and most importantly, if you like the show, why don't you subscribe? We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts online and on the app, Overcast, Pocket Casts, anywhere you can find podcasts. You can find Talk This. So next week will be a side quest of my choosing of undetermined topic. But Emma, what are we going to be talking about in 2 weeks?
In 2 weeks, we'll be talking about Dark Cloud for our old game.
Dope.
And we'll be talking about Ghost Runner for our new game.
Excellent. Those sound, at least thematically, like they could work.
We'll have to see.
Dark Ghost Runner Hunter.
Where did Hunter come from?
I don't know. Just felt like it could go in there. Well, that's what we'll be talking about in 2 weeks. Next week it'll be a side quest, and then it rotates on from there. So listeners, thanks for tuning in for this week's episode. We've enjoyed chatting on the airwaves for you. Emma, do you want me to do the sign-off? Do you want to do the sign-off?
You can do it.
Inspired? What?
You can do it, since you're on a roll with your perfectly good and perfectly fine ratings.
Can I do it? Okay. I hope that this week, Your life is more of a cozy management style game than a Mafia game. More of a Spiritfarer vania than a Mafia vania.
Not acceptable.